Welcome back to episode 6 here on Venus, and I know it's been a year quite literally, but it's also been a year in game. We are currently on day 872, and this is the atmospherics room we left off in the last episode. But as you can hopefully tell, a lot has changed. I have built a lot here, and this is Distillation facility now. So we're doing all the base filtration through phase change mechanics and then separating out all the sub parts of the atmosphere in order to filter it. But yeah, I'm thinking most of the episode is gonna be spent on going through and explaining how all of this works. So it will be a lot of, atmospherics theory in this video. But before we start with that, let's do a quick run through the base just to refresh our minds on what everything here does. This is a new part of the base. Well, the interior space has always been here, but it didn't used to have anything here. So this is between my Winterspawn rooms, and one more down there, and we have this one, and then the third one is up here. And this here right here is my genetic breeding facility, I guess. So these machines here, if you haven't seen them before, they are called automated hydroponics. They are technically a vanilla item, but unless you have a mod I made, then you can only spawn them in creative mode. But I simply made a crafting recipe for it and added it to a printer. Let's see, automated hydroponics, this one. So it's already a part of all the your game. You just can't make it unless you have the mod. But they are super great for doing genetic testing. So they work kind of like a Harvey, and this machine used to be the planter thing before Harveys came around, but they work like a Harvey with an integrated grow light and a separate gas port and a separate water port on the back. I can't get to it anyway. But they are self-contained, so they have an internal atmosphere and they aren't relying on the room they're in, which makes them really great for doing genetics, because you can isolate each plant and evaluate it. So this here, running off a ship here, just does what's it called? Survival of the fittest, really. It measures the parameters of each plant, and then it will keep the best 3 and dump the worst 3. And just keep going like that forever. So this setup here just makes me just produces super plants, super Winterspawns for me. We could probably do a test here. I haven't tested these in a while, so it could be interesting to see what kind of metrics they have now. I primarily select for lowest water consumption, because the Winterspawn by default drinks a lot of water. We have water usage down to 77% on this. Let's see. Time until toxin damage is almost maxed. Time until overheat damage. Time until light damage. Time until darkness damage. But yeah, like I said, I primarily select for water usage. The rest is just mostly just accidental. I see you have maximized the growth speed multiplier, which isn't bad. But yeah, we're making super plants. And that's what this room is for. Down here, I basically just have storage. I was running this for a long while before Winterspawn had seeds. and then I upgraded, and suddenly all the super plants I had saved up started to decay, so I should probably get them planted before they fully decay, but I put in some fridges just to keep them as long as possible. Back here you can see the water connecting to the automated hydroponics, and each of them have a digital valve, and there's also a sensor on the inside, I think. It's really hard to get to, but yeah, they each have a liquid analyzer so that we can measure the water consumption on them. But anyway, down here I have made a cooking corner. So this is just the automated ovens and packing machine, and I have it connected up to my plant supply. And you know, just fridges. I still live off the canned French fries. And yeah, this is a pile of all the atmospheric kits I have ripped out of the base because I'm no longer using any of them. I'm not using filtration devices. I'm not using the atmospheric kit ACs anymore. So I wanted to gather them up to see how many I could eliminate, and it's quite a pile. Up here we have the crafting room, and aside from a few extra panels, I don't think this has changed too much, but underneath has changed because I have connected it up to my storage system. So it's a bit cramped in here, but we have the storage system I made many years ago with routers and of course integrated with the furnace, which is why I placed the furnace here in the first place, because I don't really need to see it. It's fully automatic. And then we can get around here as well. It's just more of the same. And then it's connected underneath further down as well. We'll go and check that out. But yeah, I don't touch the furnace anymore. I just dump ores at the first floor, and then I just order whatever I need, and then everything else just happens automatically. Over here we have the generator room. Not changed much. I just been taking out the Stirling generators that used to sit here. We have some panels here showing power consumption, temperature inside the room, my cooling pump, and then this percentage shows how much of this power is generated by the gas fuel generator. The rest of it is generated by the Stirling engines. Not done anything here. And down here we have the rest of the inventory system, and this is the storage unit. So this here holds basically just ores and ingots. Personally, I just dump ores here when I've been outside mining, and then, yeah, like I said, everything else just happens automatically. And here's, you know, all the logic for it. If you've seen my old episode on this system, you know that it's a logic heavy system. It's even more in here. But then, yeah, then that's all. That's it. But yeah, there's a bunch of logic that goes into controlling the inventory system. And then we have the entrance. And if we continue, we have the greenhouse, which I think you have seen. See, we have some decayed food here. But yeah, haven't changed much, just cleaned it out. But this room is new, and I haven't started using it yet. We will add more hydroponics trays here because we are gonna need more stuff for the composters, really. But I haven't quite gotten around to it yet. Still just an empty room. And then moving further in. By the way, this is underneath the landing pad, the trader landing pad. And then moving in here, we have the Stirling room. So this used to be the old hydroponics, no sorry, the old atmospherics room. And we used to have filtration units here, but the entire room has been repurposed to a pure Stirling room, more or less. And the old AC towers, which wasn't used in the last episode either, they were just sitting there, but they are gone now. And then, yeah. And yeah, here we have the logic controlling this part of the base. Moving up, we have fuel mixing here and nitrous oxide fuel here for the generators upstairs. We have water production in a quite a big room all by itself, but it's there. And then coming back up, we've pretty much been all the way through the base. I think a good place to start off today's video really is to recap quickly what we did in the last video, and that was setting up this cooler system for the generator room. And aside from shifting the pipes over a bit, it's more or less exactly the same. So the generator room is pure nitrous oxide, which is then pumped in by active vents into this pipe right here, where it condenses, as you can see, and then of course it bleeds into this. It passes through these 4 cross-flow heat exchangers and then comes back out fairly cold, and then it gets pumped back into the generator room. As you can see, it makes puddles in there now. I liked it more when it was less fog effect. And stepping into the generator room, we can see that we are running on a pure nitrous oxide atmosphere, which are evaporating right here to keep the room cold and the generator happy. And then, of course, the pressure up there, the active vent up there is getting all the excess gases. So this entire room is essentially just a big evaporation chamber, and that keeps our generators happy. So we have automatic lights in this base. It turns off at daytime to save power. But yeah, the rest of the atmospherics is more or less one continuous huge loop now. So there isn't anywhere that makes a huge sense to start. So I think we'll just continue really from here and follow the exhaust pipe of the generators. And the exhaust pipe comes out right here, as you can see. But to help ourselves follow the flow and the pipes along around the base, we are going to use the brand new Meson scanner, or Meson scanner. I don't know, I've only seen it written down, but this thing. And my initial reaction when we got these, and yeah, I mean, it's not brand new, but it's new since the last episode. My first reaction was that, yeah, it's super cool, but as you can tell, not extremely helpful. Which is why I have modded it a bit, so that we can do stuff like this, and isolate a single pipe. We can also do the same with cables, or we can do only pipes, or we can see chutes, we can see plants, we can see default, we can see only the cables, we can see the cable load, let's see pipes, we can see pipe stress, pipe temperature, we can see of course the chutes, but we can also see the contents of the chutes. And let's see if we can get lucky here. Yeah, a swift grass traveling through. This is one of my favorites. And of course we can see the plants and the growth stages on them. We can see convection. And I think this is damage, yeah. I don't have any damage building, but I have some windows up there that's been taking some damage. But yeah, So I'm gonna use this quite a lot throughout this video, just to help showing where each pipe goes, and of course what it's connected to. You can see I can toggle what the connected devices are, and show that it's connected to the generators in there, and a tank right here, and a volume pump, and a one-way valve. So when you see me doing this, you know it's a mod, but yeah, it helps using the Meson scanner. But back to topic. We have a waste pipe here from the generators. You can see there is mostly CO2 and nitrogen in there, but a little bit of everything. This pipe first serves as the hot pipe in the furnace, which is on the other side there. But all the excess will pass through to this pipe, which serves as the waste tank for the furnace. And then this one, it's a bit hard to reach the next pipe underneath right here. Oh, there we go. And this pipe then leads down to the water production and a second tank, and as you can see, all these radiators. So by this point we have gathered up all the generator waste gases, all the waste gases from the furnace, as well as everything, the H2 combustor outputs. So we get a pipe with a bunch of different things in it. I think the only place we can get a good read on it is inside here. And now you can see we have not only CO2 and nitrogen anymore, we have pollutant, we have water, we have oxygen. And the filtration really starts down here, because again, through a one-way valve, it leads to the Stirling engine input. And we have 5 here, and you can see only 2, well 3 a little bit is running. And that's because these Stirling engines aren't really here to produce power. They are here to cool down this pipe to exactly, hold on, there we go, wrong button, to exactly 350. Well, not exactly, but pretty close to 350. And that's because that's the temperature, the hottest temperature we can condense water. So through condensation valves here and on the first pipe as well, we get a really hot pipe of water. So this is the pure, we get a pure water pipe. Even though it's really hot, it's pure water. And as you can tell by the flicking network tablet, that is most of the water already condensed right here. But yeah, the Stirling engines are coded to control the temperature in this pipe, not specifically to make power. Power is just a byproduct. But yeah, this pipe then continues across the floor and enters first 1 and then 2 cross-flow heat exchangers. And this one is connected to a direct heat exchanger as well. And this is because we now need to cool it all the way down for pollutant to also condense. But you can see that even the one in the middle here, the water is more or less gone, or even though it's still some water here. I mean, it's less than 0.5%. So we have gotten rid of pretty much all the water. Or what should I say, distilled it, filter it, whatever you want to call it. Most of the water had gone in here. A little bit is left, but now we need to get rid of all the pollutant, which is why we bring this pipe down to 100 degrees to condense then the pollutant. and the pollutant goes off to a different pipe. Can I get a click on it? There we go. Well, almost. The pollutant goes in here, and of course we have cooled it down, right? It's 100 degrees now. But I don't want my pollutant at 100 degrees. I want it as hot as humanly or technically possible. Which is why it crosses through the same cross-flow heat exchangers all the other gases went the other way to redeem that temperature, that energy. So by cooling this gas down, we expend that energy into the pollutant we don't really want. But as you can see, there's 12% water here. So, of course, a little bit of the water makes it through here, but some water even makes it further. This here is a pump connected to this pipe, and this is my heating pump. And yeah, we have a yellow pipe here. The yellow pipe is the Winterspawn room. It goes for a really long distance. We can't even see the end of it. But this is essentially my Winterspawn room. So all of these waste gases that we haven't already eliminated, so most of the... we have eliminated most of the water, most of the pollutant. But everything else goes straight into the Winterspawn room. So I can see that we don't have any volatiles in this mix. That's probably because we are running a slightly volatile thin on the fuels. But yeah, sometimes we get volatiles through here as well. But even that is not a problem. It will go into the Winterspawn room, which is managed, which is designed to manage a lot more volatiles. But this pump here pretty much controls the temperature of the base. So, welcome to the Winterspawn room. Well, one of them. And inside here we can see we get pollutants, we get nitrous oxide, we even get water even. Of course we get the CO2, the nitrogen and oxygen, well that's fine. If we get some volatiles through the waste gases, then that's also fine because these guys produce volatiles anyway. But the problem with the Winterspawns is really that they produce volatile. And the volatiles also kills them. And they start taking damage around 1% volatile. You can see even my character is struggling in this atmosphere, but it is, barely breathable. But let's see. Oh, wrong tablet. We can see that, yeah, we are at almost 80% of the volatiles limit for the plants. So it's, slightly below, but it's really close to the limit before they start to die of their own production. And that's the real problem with having Winterspawns. You have to, filter a lot of gas, because if for every mole of volatile I want to get out of here at this ratio, I need to process 100 moles of everything else. And that's a real issue. The volatile mole is just such a small percentage of the atmosphere, so to effectively get it out I have to process a huge amount of all the other gases. But yeah, this there we go. This yellow pipe is the same yellow pipe we had downstairs, and as you can see, it just gets dumped into the room. And then we have active vents here connected to a different pipe, which are set to grab everything up to or down to 90 kPa, which is why we have roughly 90 kPa in here. So all the gases coming from furnace and generator goes into here and then gets sucked back out through active vents, which is of course connected to all the 3 Winterspawn rooms. And stepping back outside the Winterspawn room, we can follow that same pipe, which then goes up into our big atmospherics room. But when we look at this pipe, we can see that it's suddenly at 3.3% volatiles. And that's because this also connects to the composter room. So all the composter gases also goes into this pipe. And now we have a pipe with 3.3% volatiles. And I can't put this gas, I can't put the volatile gas back into the Winterspawn room. I definitely do not want it anywhere else in the base. So we need to get rid of every volatile, all the volatiles in this mixture before we send it anywhere else. And that is the primary function of this room. So following this pipe, it first is controlled by a pump right there. And that pump simply reads the pipe pressure and stuff like that, and makes sure that the input into the distillation rig is exactly 50 moles. And the reason for 50 moles per tick is simply it's the bare minimum than that the Winterspawn can handle. If I go any slower, the Winterspawns will die. If I go any higher, the distillation rig would simply be too small. So 50 moles per tick is, a good median, I figured out. But yeah, let's see if we can get the highlight on this. I might have to pull some other tricks out of the sleeves here. Hold on. There we go. There we go. So the volume pump just controls that flow into the distillation rig, and the first thing it does is pass through 2 different cross-flow heat exchangers. And I'm not gonna tell you what goes in the other way just yet, because we're gonna get back to it. Like I said, everything around here is a big circle. But yeah, and then it will come out right here. So this will be the primary entrance. And as you can see, we have already eliminated a lot. The water is no longer with us. The pollutant has all condensed. There is no nitrous oxide here. It's just a typical base mix or greenhouse mix plus the volatiles. And it's not really any trick between here and here. It's just that already here most of the pollutant are gone. The nitrous oxide is blinking back and forth because it's there but not really there. The water is all but gone as well. So really, the only thing that actually just makes it through is this. And even the pollutant doesn't make it far. But yeah, the first thing it meets is basically just cross-flow heat exchangers. And these are a row of 5, but it's 3 rows of 5. So just to get a better look at it, the entrance here, the distillation entrance, just meets all these 3 at once and then passes through each of them, in parallel. And if we follow the input down, you can see that we still have pollutant here, we still have pollutant here, and then we suddenly no longer have pollutants. And that's because this is where the CO2 starts to condense. So the reason the pollutant doesn't continue is because this pipe has a higher liquid ratio. That's the real reason. This has 0.008 liters of pollutant liquid. This has 0.1 liter of CO2 liquid. So this pollutant will never go into here because this pipe already have liquids at a higher ratio. But yeah, going further down we have more liquid CO2, and that's the real purpose of this. It's just to bring the gas mixture down in temperature so that the CO2 condenses. And by the time we get to -53, we have condensed more or less all the CO2. But the problem here is that if we wanna, separate out volatiles, we need to make it a lot further down in temperature, and at which point CO2 would be freezing. So we need to get rid of all the CO2 before this gas mixture continues. And to do that, this is the exit of the first cross-flow heat exchanger array, and as you could tell by the tablet, the CO2 is almost gone, but it's not gone. So to make sure it, to eliminate it further, it goes up to a couple of different things here. First of all, a lot of condensation valves, but primarily it will go here. And of course condensation valves, but it's also one-way valves into this pipe, which is just more condensation valves, and this this here are tanks. We'll go up and look at it, but yeah, it continues just to another one, and then to another one, and that's the reason for the separation, and several of them, is just simply to dilute the CO2 as much as possible. And by the time we get to the fourth one, it's pretty much gone. The CO2 is, practically gone. So if we go up and take a quick look at it, it's these 4 tanks we looked at from underneath, and yeah, these are essentially working as condensation chambers, together with the pipe networks in the back, which are also doing condensation. But it's separated into separate networks so that we dilute the CO2 as much as possible. And of course the CO2 that condenses here, it will condense into this orange pipe, which also goes off to a few places, but primarily it just goes straight across to the other side here, to these 2 tanks, which evaporates the CO2 back up. And as you can tell, we have volatiles here, and we have no volatiles here. But this isn't the part that filters out volatiles. This is just condensation of CO2 and evaporations of CO2. But the CO2 essentially condensates in these 4, takes a shortcut through the liquid pipe straight into an evaporation chamber to evaporate the CO2. And then downstairs, by the time we get to the last pipe, we have more or less almost eliminated CO2. It will get further eliminated by another network here, connected to, of course, more condensation valves. But it's not gone, but it's as good as I could reasonably get it. And we'll see that it's not really a problem. But then it hits the second cross-flow heat exchanger array. And all this mixture here will go into this array and cross down this side and then back up the other side, like that. So we could follow the CO2 and see that, yeah, there is a little bit of CO2 that keeps making its way down. But like the pollutant, it will get stopped by volatiles condensing. So the reason we don't get any more CO2 further down is because in this pipe there's a tiny bit of liquid CO2, but the ratio is so small that it won't go into the next pipe because that has a higher ratio of liquid. You know, it's pollutant. Sorry, it's volatiles. I might be mixing up these words, but yeah, so the CO2 will get stuck here. And you can see it's freezing, but as long as the molar amount is so small, it doesn't do any damage or hurt anything. We have some condensation valves along the line here just to keep catching these small amounts. But the amount in this pipe isn't building up, it isn't increasing, it's not going to be a problem. Because as long as this fluid ratio is lower than the next one, it won't go anywhere, and as long as it's higher than the previous pipe, it won't get refilled with anything. And then it's just a job of keeping the previous pipes as low as possible. And we are far below any problematic limit here. I'm fairly sure that pipes won't take freezing damage until you have enough moles in the network to form at least one ice. And that's around 20 moles, I think, and we are at 0.008, so it's there's a long distance to any problem. But yeah, we are continuing to cool down, and you can see we have now eliminated CO2 and volatile condenses. But the problem with eliminating or filtering out all the volatiles is that you can't just condense volatiles and then take everything else, because you can never get a pure non-volatile gas mixture that way. The only way to securely eliminate absolutely all volatiles is to condense all of them. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm condensing oxygen, nitrogen, and the volatile. All three are condensed here, and we have some tanks down here as well. And this is the condensation tank, if you would. It condenses all three as well, and then it goes into this liquid pipe, which is the coldest in this loop, coldest pipe in the loop, before we start to go back up. And as you can tell, a little bit of CO2 in here, and that's because a little bit of CO2 made its way in here before I got it cold enough to condense volatiles. But this tiny bit of CO2 is actually decreasing. Probably not fast enough to see, but yeah, it's been slowly decreasing ever since. But yeah, it made it, a tiny bit, a few millimoles made it in before I got the thing started properly. But again, it's not making a problem. Yeah, it just went down with a fraction again. So it's slowly decreasing and going away. But this condensed liquid, this mix now of liquid nitrogen, oxygen, and volatile, makes its way into this pipe here, liquid pipe, which is connected to these 4 tanks. But these 4 tanks have a different gas connection. And these go to a turbo pump that is evaporating them again, except we are of course carefully managing the pressure in the evaporation here, so that only oxygen and nitrogen is evaporated, and the volatile stays. So that's how we eliminate all volatiles securely, by condensing the mole and then only evaporating the oxygen and nitrogen. And from there it's pretty much just a pure oxygen-nitrogen mix, which makes its way back up the chain all the way to here, where it again meets the now CO2. So this pipe here is connected to the evaporation side of the CO2 distillation, right? So this is why this side doesn't have volatiles. It's because the volatile has been removed further down the line, and the nitrogen and oxygen in here is just the gas coming back up. And connected to those tanks, of course, it goes back into this cross-flow heat exchanger array and then makes its way back up all the way through, and we end up with a CO2, nitrogen and oxygen pure, nice and clean mix. Now this mix here is connected to this power vent. So this clean mix is then sent into the room itself, which is why this room is so cold. And then sent across the room wirelessly, if you would. And then accepted back into here. And the reason we are using powered vents to send it through and into here is really just because power vents are so much more effective at low pressure ranges, and evaporating CO2 really requires a really low pressure. So to effectively get a low enough pressure in this pipe, the only real way is to, well, of course you could use a bunch of turbo pumps, but it's way more power efficient to use a powered vent instead. But now that you have a power vent, you suddenly have the gas inside a room, so you need another power vent to accept it again. And then here we have the product of the filtration coming through the room, and it then goes through where we started today's episode by going through here and grabbing all that heat from the generator room. And we have a equally clean but now slightly hotter gas mix, which then goes through a couple of one-way valves and then back into the Winterspawn room. And yeah, that's the gas flow pretty much explained. But there's a bunch of minor stuff to explain here and how this works. I mean, the distillation itself isn't that complicated. It's, you bring it down to condense CO2, probably maybe also pollutant, sorry. And then the pollutant and CO2 just takes a shortcut, and everything else goes further down in temperature and then gets condensed, and then you evaporate only the stuff you want. Back up, go through everything again in order to conserve as much of the energy. You go back through everything again, you meet the CO2 in the other end, you evaporate everything together, and boom, you have a clean gas mix. So the idea isn't too complicated, but of course a cross-flow heat exchanger isn't perfect, and one of the problems here is that not everything comes back up. That's the whole point, right? We are filtering stuff out. Some of them can't be sent back in the same pipe. So if you look at the moles coming through these, you can see that we are sending 30.1 moles in, and we are only returning 28.3. But the cross-flow heat exchanger isn't perfect. You're not getting a full temperature swap anyway. So we need a system to keep this temperature cold, to keep it all the way down at 119 degrees down here, or keep it this step at negative 53, 54 for the CO2 to condense. And to make these temperature happen, we have starting with heat pump over here. And this is pretty much a conventional heat pump. You might recognize this better if I go and pick up, let's see, a phase change device, just for illustration. You would normally have what, condensation chamber right here, and then an evaporation chamber right here, but I'm not using them. I'm using the different stuff, as you can tell. That's simply because these I made a couple of them just to look at them and test them when they were new. But problem is it's just way too limiting. I mean, it's fine if all you need is one of these, one evaporation chamber, one condensation chamber. If that's plenty for your need, it's nothing wrong with them. But if one set isn't enough for you and you start to build several of them to string them together and combine them, then it's much better to build a more heavy duty machinery, which is what I have here. So this is a pollutant heat pump, and it just runs pollutant. We have a turbo pump to pressurize it and then of course condense it. It condenses, it runs through the heat exchangers, it comes back here, it goes into my gas tanks, which acts as evaporation chambers, and they evaporate, they make things cold, it goes all the way back up and recondenses. So this is essentially just a regular heat pump. But an important thing about these heat pumps is that you must have a pressure-end gas, which is why I have oxygen. That's the one running in pipe here. It's just a pure oxygen pipe. It's not connected to anything. It's just a buffer for the oxygen pressure-end I have here. Because without a pressure-end, you would have pollutant evaporating on this side and then recondensing on this side, which kind of kills your efficiency. If you have built one of these and you have any latent heat in any of these pipes in between here, you are losing efficiency, which is why you want that pressure-end gas, so that you eliminate any latent heat within the system itself. But other than that, it's, a basic heat pump. And that heat pump gives us, negative 96 degrees pollutant, which is the first step. And some of my pipes are really hidden, so let me just, there we go. So this is the gas side of the tanks, and it goes off to direct heat exchanger up there through this digital valve, and the other side of that direct heat exchanger is this CO2 pipe. So that digital valve essentially makes sure that our CO2 condensation step is kept at a steady negative 50 to 53 degrees Celsius, but that evaporation, let's see, this pollutant evaporation side also goes to these three heat exchangers here, which is the next heat pump. We can't get the pollutant further down because it'll start freeze at negative 100. So we are already, getting close to the limit here. But through the direct heat exchangers, we are moving on to the next heat pump, which is a pollutant heat pump. Sorry, a volatile heat pump. And yeah, it just exchanges through the three direct heat exchangers to this is a volatile condensation chamber, if you would. I'm just using a pipe and a condensation valve. That's a condensation chamber, and yeah, it's condensing. And then that liquid, I can't click it because it's underneath the floor, but I can find it. Hold on. It's red. No, it's not red, it's blue. There we go. So that liquid pipe goes up here and then comes into these two tanks. And that's because this here isn't one heat pump, it's actually two heat pumps. It's two volatile heat pumps. So this pipe here is the first condensation chamber, and then this tank is the first evaporation chamber. But that's not enough, right? Negative 109 degrees is not enough to safely condense oxygen, so we need to go colder, which is why this would be the next condensation chamber. And you can see we're doing condensation here. It's still just pure volatiles. And then this would be the last evaporation chamber. And the way these are connected together, because they are both going on volatiles, they are actually just straight up connected through the liquid pipe. And the main benefit of that is that they share a liquid, which means they will share a temperature. I do not need to have heat exchangers between this evaporation chamber and this condensation chamber. They share the same liquid, thus the same temperature. So you have no temperature gap between them. The one heat pump takes over where the other one ends. And the reason we are doing it like this here and not just doing a bunch of cross-flow heat exchangers is because there is no pressure and gas here. I can't put a pressure and gas in this temperature range, because even oxygen would condense at these temperatures. So there really isn't any pressure and gas I can use. I have tried using cross-flow heat exchangers in between them, but like I mentioned, the problem is that you get evaporation in the wrong places and condensation in the wrong places. It's much more efficient to just make two separate heat pumps. But yeah, and then we need some overflow of liquids into the back evaporation chamber, and then this liquid pipe, then double direct heat exchange over to the distillation condensation chamber. So that's the back wall here, all the way from there to there is just heat pumps to facilitate the distillation process. And yeah, so all that heat, of course, the heat pumps are moving all the way up. It has to be put into something, and of course we just put it into the filtered gas itself. So we started with gas mix here at 21.1 degrees, which is already cold, but like it's already been chilled down. The Winterspawn room holds 21 degrees. The composter room holds quite a bit more, so it's already been chilled by the time it gets here. But we started with 21 degrees, and after everything has been, calculated and done, and all the heat has been moved, we are at 24.8 degrees. So that's pretty much it. We have all the energy has been accounted for, all the filtration has been accounted for, well, except all the stuff we actually filter. So what do we do with all that volatile then? We have this pipe, and then it goes through all the way up there, and that's because we are aggressively evaporating all the oxygen and all the nitrogen, right? So the liquid left in here is primarily volatiles. So we go through, don't mind these for now, it goes into this volume pump, and hold on, it goes up here. That's the volume pump. It gets sent into there. Evaporation valve into these things, which I don't remember what it's called. Essentially just dump that liquid straight into this one by one. And then the active vent will evaporate it, just like we did in the generator room. This room is just an evaporation chamber. And the reason we're doing this differently than we are for the, the oxygen and nitrogen is because we can't do volatiles in the same way. If we try to do volatiles in the same way, we would just aggressively evaporate the oxygen and nitrogen first and not the volatile. It would just be stuck in there, which is why we are using the liquid volume pump instead and doing the actual liquid and not the gas, and then dumping all of it into here and then evaporating all of it together. The radiators down there are connected to the same pipe, and that's to reclaim that that latent heat in the evaporation is reclaimed back into that pipe. And then what we end up with is this pipe here, which is almost pure volatile. As you can see, we get a little bit of oxygen and a little bit of nitrogen with it, but it's more or less pure volatiles. It's 98.7% volatiles, and it's only really the nitrogen which is the problem, because most of this volatile is gonna get mixed with oxygen anyway down in the water, making the H2 combustor. So I don't mind that too much, but it's pretty damn close to pure. And it's connected to a direct heat exchanger. And that's to make sure we heat it up properly so that we don't get another, so that we don't recondense it in here. And then it crosses through the first of these cross-flow heat exchangers where the original mix started. And again, that's just to make sure we squeeze out all the energy we can, and then we get a volatile pipe at almost 20 degrees, 19.3. And the other side of this direct heat exchanger is also connected to this brown pipe, the original input of the distillation setup. So we really try hard to reclaim every bit of energy we can. And then this here is essentially the same as the one in the back of the room, except this does only oxygen. This is running on a pump up here, and like the one in the all the way back there, it's doing the same, but because oxygen is the first one to evaporate, we can easily just evaporate the oxygen. You see, this oxygen pipe first goes through a pump, comes up here, and then passes through the first cross-flow heat exchanger, and then goes off. And again, just to reclaim all the energy we can, and don't burden the distillation too much because it's an energy intensive setup. Oh yes, CO2. We of course have this orange pipe, which is the shortcut between the CO2 condensation over to the CO2 evaporation. But with this will be more or less CO2. You can see there's a tiny bit of pollutant in there, which has been sitting there for months, quite literally, because we're not getting any more pollutant. It's just been sitting there since the dawn of this system. Yeah, that pipe goes off to here, where it is pumped out with a direct heat exchanger, evaporated. And again, this is the same, it's the same pipe as the original mix we started with at the pump. just to make sure we reclaim as much energy into the into the distillation as possible. But yeah, that's how we separate out CO2, and that goes out down there. We'll probably have a look at that later if the video isn't going too far already. And we don't separate out nitrogen. We don't really need to separate nitrogen. The plants use nitrogen, but of course we send everything else back to the plants. But there is one place we need nitrogen. We need, technically, a nitrogen-oxygen mix. And that's, hold on, down at the nitrolysers. So inside the generator room we have nitrolysers, which makes our nitrous oxide, and that of course needs a nitrogen-oxygen mix. But I don't need to separate out nitrogen, because I already have a nitrogen-oxygen mix right here. So this pipe just goes through to a volume pump, and then that just goes through a pump down to the nitrolysers down there. Ooh, they are sitting right there, the orange dots there. And that's how we separate out nitrogen and oxygen. And the nitrous oxide they make is going back into the same exact pipe, and then just condenses and is, condenses right in that pipe and is sent straight into the generator room, which is pure nitrous oxide anyway. And down here we have our oxygen feed pump into the regular fuel mix. And as I showed you, that regular fuel mix goes downstairs into that cross-flow heat exchanger there, comes back up hot. We have a safety pump to control the temperature, and it goes to water. The H2 comes through here, so the pressure in my fuel line will essentially be whatever pressure is in the hydrogen pipe. But we also have hydrogen here for the nitrous fuel. So the volatile pump here will feed the nitrous oxide into the nitrous oxide fuel mix there. The nitrous oxide is actually entered through an active vent in the generator room, because again the generator room is pure nitrous oxide, so the nitrous oxide to the fuel just goes in there. We also have a few condensation valves here. So this is the yellow pipe is the Winterspawn room, and all these tiny mixes, pollutant, nitrous oxide and water liquefying we get in here is hopefully grabbed by these. If it isn't, it will be grabbed by these here, which are the same pipe we had upstairs going into the generator cooling, and then this is the other side. So if we get any liquids in here, like pollutant, water, whatever, it will get sent into this pink pipe. This pink pipe is also fed by the green pipe, which is our CO2 evaporation. Same one we had upstairs. And that's because all the CO2 we filter out is actually just thrown out. We aren't importing CO2 from the Venusian atmosphere. We are, producing all the CO2 locally, but we are producing too much of it. So we have to throw some of it out, but of course it's cold, and we need to make sure we save every bit of energy here. So all of this pretty much waste, except the water. We want to keep the water, right? But everything else is essentially waste. We send that through this cross-flow heat exchanger over to my purple line, which we briefly looked at down there. And the purple line is also fed by, well, it's primarily fed by the pure water line. So this one goes through a one-way valve into my purple line, which is water, but as you can tell, very contaminated water, and of course also really hot water. The pure water line also feed the regulator up there. Hold on. But that feeds into something else. That feeds through this cross-flow heat exchangers and then into the drinking water line. So this is cold water with the oxygen as a pressurant, but it's cold drinkable water. So to cool down this hot water before we send into drinking, we expend that energy, we dump all that energy into all this waste gas and, you know, this contaminated water that we are sending back out to the the purple line. And the purple line, I think, is the last pipe we have, but the purple line goes all the way back up there. And if you remember what's there, you can have a guess, but all the way up here is the composters. Heavy drinkers. Heavy drinkers. They drink a lot of water, but they do not care about the temperature, and they do not care if it is if the water is polluted. So that's where all this hot and polluted water really goes. But of course the composters only drink the water. Everything else is just left in here. But because of the pressure and temperature, everything else will also evaporate. It will only really leave the water in this pipe. And then all that primarily pollutant, also some CO2 and a tiny bit of nitrous oxide, which has made its way here, just gets dumped out into the world. And that's the only gas exit on this base. That's the only place anything leaves the base. And we almost do not have anything coming into the base, because I have slightly been lying to you, because we do actually still have some filtration units. We have these 4, which are feeding the base with nitrogen. And that's because I'm still not nitrogen positive. The Winterspawn drinks so much nitrogen. So to feed all of these plants with nitrogen, I still need those filtration devices there, but they are only grabbing nitrogen from the atmosphere and feeding my my base with. And I do have a plan to remedy that, to fix that, but I need to remedy that. I need a lot more plant production, and I need to set up the composter room fully, and right now it's only 3 composters running. I have space for another 9, but to make sense of it, I need plants, way more plants. So in order to become nitrogen self-sufficient, I need to fill out this room with plant production, so that we can utilize or expand the composters a lot more, which will give us a lot more nitrogen. But just before I end the episode, I will answer probably the question most of you will have on mind, and that is why these portable tanks everywhere. Why do you use these portable tanks, so many places here for so many different purposes? And that's because they are awesome. They really have they have something nothing else has. Hold on, I think I have spare one here. They have a liquid input, which is also an output. It will equalize liquid on one side and equalize gas on the other side. But most importantly, it will only equalize gas here and only equalize liquid here. It will never equalize gas in the liquid port, and it will never equalize liquid in the gas port. That's crucial. And that gives us obviously a really good phase separation, but it also allows stuff to free flow between them. And if we take this CO2 as an example, you have now seen that. Wow, okay, this isn't connected actually. Okay, we have seen that the only, pipe in the CO2 side here, which I'm cooling down, is this pipe. But we have condensation happening here, here, and here, and evaporation happening here and here. Yet they are shockingly close in temperature. And that's thanks to the functionality of the tanks, because they share hold on. Because they share that liquid tank, that liquid network, and because they equalize liquid both ways, both in and out, right? Then they will also synchronize their temperature. So even though we have condensation happening all over here, evaporation happening here, and only cooling down or controlling the temperature of one of these, they all will share the temperature through that liquid. And perhaps even better is to see it down here, because we are condensing, which is of course releasing heat. And you can see we have a latent heat of 6.6 kilojoules here and a latent heat of 11.3 here. And you might think that, well, that's cancelled out by these, but it isn't. These are doing 4 and 4. That's not even half of the latent heat that this is doing, right? And the output here, the evaporation side, is also the same temperature. And that's again thanks to the portable tanks, which has this equalization of both of gas and liquid. So you end up, even though you remove a lot of heat here, you cool this down through evaporation, that's essentially cancelled out by the condensation here. Because they share this liquid pipe, they will also share the temperature. So that's the primary reason why these are so great. There isn't anything else in the game. I've been looking far and high and wide to find any other solution, but it also works great just as an evaporation chamber, because you can pull the gas out of it, but you're never going to pull the liquid out through the gas port. So the only thing driving this heat pump here is this turbo pump. It's pulling out of this, which is then just free flowing backwards all the way into the tanks. But because it's a portable tank and it has this effect, you will never pull the liquid with it. The liquid will stay here and evaporate here and only here. And it will also never accept my pressure and gas, the oxygen in this liquid pipe. It will never be sent into the tank because it's not a liquid. So that's the primary function of, well, a primary reason for why these portable tanks are so universally great for this kind of stuff. I would love to see more valves and pumps with more phase-specific mechanics. We have the condensation valves and the evaporation valve, but they aren't free-flowing. They aren't... these two are actually more like pumps, right? Because it actively empties the source pipe into the target pipe. So they actually function more like pumps, if you ask me. But I would love like a phase-specific, just an equalizer, just an one-way valve, or just a regular, just a regular valve, but one that only did a certain phase, like only did gas or only did liquid. That would, open up for a lot more funny stuff. But for now, we have the portable tanks. They work great. But yeah, I've been talking for a really long time now, and most of you have probably fallen off a long time ago and regretted opening this video. So I'll say thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, I have probably glossed over tons of details. If there is anything you want me to cover more in detail, please let me know. Put a comment down. You can find me on the Stationeers Discord, send me a DM, or just tag me in atmospheric chat. I spent half my life in the atmospheric chat over there, so I can't guarantee you that the next episode won't also be a year from now, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do one when we get new terrain. But thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next episode.